bright light of mine. And what I did, because we have a guest speaker next week, is I combined what was in the essence of the topic today and the essence of the topic for next week, so that we could get the fullness of it and bring it to completion for the month. And Sarada's message is going to be just a beautiful addition to this entire topic of the lights, and she's going to be talking about enlightenment. So, speaking of this bright light of mine, a friend of mine decided to embrace his light, his inner light, embrace the light that he is. And so he said to me, "Now I identify as the brightest star in the dark sky." To which I asked, "Are you serious?"
That one is for you, Tom.
And I needed Dan's help because I wasn't sure whether you'd get the serious part or not, right? Okay, so from our perspective on this planet, the stars shine brightest at night. And of course, we know if we take a ride out into the universe, they're shining all the time. But from the perspective of this planet, we need the dark sky to offset and to magnify the stars. So in the same way, our light and our shadow aspects counterbalance, complement, support each other in the wholeness of who we are, and work together in unison then to reveal what we call our authentic divine selves. So while it may seem as if one might overpower the other, the darkness or the light within us, my intention is to show you how they truly do support each other in this process of being the wholeness of who we are. And of course, our spiritual principles and practices support that integration of the darkness and the light in perfect harmony. So when we learn to embrace our shadow aspects, we begin to discover that there are gifts that they are offering us that help us to become lighter, brighter, and more balanced in our sense of self. Which means then we can bring the fullness of who we are to each and every challenging situation in life. And that means we can show up with greater resilience, wisdom, understanding, and clarity. And so I'd like to begin first by just delving into this idea of embracing the shadow. And then we will end with shining your light. Years ago, I really got into a book by Debbie Ford that's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Has anybody read that book? One other person. Oh, you are in for a treat, everybody. This was one of the required readings in the very beginning of ministry school for me. We studied Dark Side of the Light Chasers, and we also studied Radical Forgiveness, because that deep inner work was so important for us in bringing forth our ministry. If we just focus on the light and we don't do the shadow work, then we're missing a whole aspect, an opportunity to bring forth a greater expression of who we are. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. Dark Side of the Light Chasers, Debbie Ford. I highly encourage all of you to consider it. So the way that this book is set up is to do exactly what I'm doing now, is to demystify, I guess we'd call it, the idea that there's something bad about the shadow aspects of ourselves. What she pointed out is our shadow is made up of disowned aspects of ourselves. When we were growing up, things that we were told were bad or wrong about us by our culture, the ways that we were socialized. And so what happened then is that it becomes a part, it's going on in the subconscious mind as something that's bad and wrong. And as a result, it continues to operate in the background of our consciousness and gets projected onto other people. Those things that trigger us. When somebody behaves a certain way, we get triggered. That's a disowned aspect of the shadow. And notice that some people are triggered by some things and not other things, and vice versa. So these are keys that let you know what you're disowning in yourself. So Debbie Ford gave a really great example of how it can sabotage relationships. She said that before she did this shadow work and learned how to do this, and the book is just full of different kinds of exercises and processes that support you. She said before she did that, she tended to attract grandiose, covert, and fearful men. Okay? And of course, she's looking at herself and saying, that's what they are. I'm not that, And so when she finally learned that if you spot it, you got it, which is also a term we use in radical forgiveness, then it was an opportunity for her to do some deep inner work. And so once she did the deep inner work and began to own those as parts of her own self, and I'll show you in a moment how that works, she began to attract then men who mirrored her positive aspects, her kindness, and what else do I have? Her kindness and her giving nature, and men who accepted her as she was. Her comment in the book, which I highlighted, is owning those aspects is an essential step in the process of healing and creating a life that you love. Owning those various shadow aspects is an essential step in the process of healing and creating a life that you love. So her book is full of stories of people that she supported in this process who began to own their disowned aspects and therefore had physical healings, relationship healings, you name it, financial healing, everything that you can imagine. This is maybe just another way of looking at healing false beliefs, right? I mean, that's the way we talk about it, but shadow self, it's the same thing. But she just has this way of framing it that was really easy to identify with and then begin to do the inner work. So how do we do this inner work in order to access the infinite potentialities and possibilities of our divine self? Because remember, our wholeness contains it all. It contains all potentials, all possibilities, and that means some of the things we might not like. We all have that, and when we push something away and say, oh, I'm not that, we are instead empowering those aspects to operate in our lives that maybe don't serve us and sabotage our relationships and our health. The first thing that you do is you look at, what am I overreacting to? Is it the selfishness of a friend, the laziness of a coworker, the rudeness of a stranger, or is it that controlling boss? And then what we do, once we begin to identify with those qualities or those aspects, those traits, we list then all the judgments that we make about others on a piece of paper. And then we begin to say, I am that. Just owning it. And it sounds weird because we always say only affirm the positive aspects. But she said when we do that, then we begin to take off the emotional charge to it. And then we can look at what is the positive side of those particular qualities. So for instance, laziness. If we own our own laziness, we might need a little laziness or relaxation in our lives to balance it out. I mean, if we have this frenetic life and we're so afraid of being lazy that we overwork ourselves, then we might need a little bit of laziness time. So there's an example. Let's say that we have judged controlling. Okay, so where might I need a little bit more control in my life? Well, maybe I need more self-discipline in caring for myself, or self-discipline in getting things done that need to be done. And so then aggression becomes assertiveness, stubbornness becomes fortitude, hate becomes social action. Does everybody see how that works? So when we begin to embrace those things that we judge, we can say, so how can I bring that into my life in a way that supports and serves me? Therefore, we're bringing our wholeness forward in our lives, and therefore we're able to be this greater presence of whatever it is we need to be in those challenging situations in life. And then there's the disowned light aspect of ourselves, the disowned light. How do we know that? Well, we have an exercise in our discovery class that brings that forward. And this is how it goes. We are asked to list 7 people that we admire. And then next to each person, 3 qualities we admire about that person. And then look for 7 different qualities that seem to be repeated, or that, that it's like, oh yeah, I would really like to have those qualities, and make a list of those. And then you state, this is who I came here to be. I came here to be this. And the truth is, if you spot it, you got it. If you see those qualities that you admire in others, they're already in you. Maybe they just haven't been owned yet. And so then it's about beginning to own those qualities as yours right here and right now. So to be our authentic self, the fullness and the wholeness of ourselves, we have to allow the aspects of ourselves that we love and judge to coexist together and to therefore integrate into our being. And then we can own the fabulous, magnificent greatness of the divine light that we each are. And therefore shine our divine potential, the fullness of the divine self, forth in life. Some of us, and I'm one of them, were taught when we were little children to be seen and not heard. And some were even taught to be not seen and not heard, to stay in the background, get out of the way, play small. If that is in our subconscious minds, because of the way we were socialized, then what will happen is that we will have a real challenge excelling, growing, and expanding until we deal with what's going on within us. I know one of the things that really helped me was not only these spiritual teachings, but that beautiful quote by Marianne Williamson in Return to Love. And the essence of what she was saying is that it is not our darkness that we fear the most, but it is our powerful beyond measure light. Our powerful beyond measure light. And so to illustrate that, I would like to share a story with you. And this will be familiar with those of you who know about the work of Anita Moorjani and her experience. Anita Moorjani had a near-death experience after her body, racked with lymphoma tumors, shut down. Body shut down. She left her body. She had this amazing experience. And when she was trying to use an analogy of what this experience was like, she used the idea of a huge, dark warehouse. It's like this huge, almost infinite in size warehouse. And she said, Everything that you know about what's contained within this enormous space is what you've seen with a small flashlight. You can only see what your light is focused on and only identify what you already know. This is what physical life is like. So physical life is this little tiny flashlight that's focused right here. We're only aware of what we focus our senses on at any given time, and we can only understand what is already familiar. And we've seen that before when people don't recognize opportunities that are right in front of them. And we might be one of those. I know I've certainly had that kind of experience. She said, next, imagine someone flicks the light switch on in the entire warehouse. That's what her near-death experience was like. She said, in a sudden burst of brilliance, sound, and color, you can see the entire warehouse. You see colors you don't recognize, ones you've never seen before. The vastness, complexity, depth, and breadth of everything going on around you is almost overwhelming. You can't see all the way to the end of the space, and you know there's more to it than what you can take in from all that is tantalizing your senses and emotions. But you get a strong feeling that you're actually part of a large and unfolding tapestry that goes beyond sight and sound. You understand that what you used to think was your reality was hardly a speck within this vast wonder that surrounds you. You can see how all the various parts are interrelated, how they all play off of each other, how everything fits. You notice just how many different things there are in the warehouse that you've never even dreamed of existing in such splendor and glory of color. But here they are, along with everything you already knew. And even the objects that you were aware of have an entirely new context. They too seem completely new and strangely super real. Even when the switch goes back off and you return to the body, nothing can take away your understanding and clarity, the wonder and beauty, or the fabulous aliveness of the experience. Nothing can ever cancel your knowledge of all that exists in that warehouse. You're now far more aware of what's there, how to access, and what's possible, which is infinite possibility, than you ever possibly could with your little flashlight. And you're left with a sense of awe over everything you experienced in those blindingly lucid moments. Life has taken on a different meaning, and your experiences moving forward are created from this expanded awareness. And then I did a little more research. It's like, well, what happened to her afterwards, because I haven't read her book. And it said, Anita chose to return to life, realizing that heaven is not a place, but an expanded state of awareness. This illumination resulted in a remarkable and complete recovery of her health within days of her return. And this is not the only example of this experience. Dr. David Hawkins had a very similar experience when he was 32 and he was dying, so-called dying of cancer, had a similar experience, came back, and within a few days, all of his cancers disappeared. So there's just so much more going on than meets our physical senses. That's the bottom line. Who we are is so much greater than we can imagine with the limited vision that we have, the limited use of our senses. So much more, way beyond the senses. So, stars, fireworks, the aurora borealis, all of these light phenomenon that are heightened by the background of darkness remind us of the importance of the balance of light and dark in the wholeness of life. And as we appreciate the darkness, as a natural part of life, something really begins to happen as we begin to let go of all of the myths and stand in this place of broad perspective, expanded perspective. We bring more of who we are to this thing that we call life in these human bodies, in this time-space reality, part of our eternal journey. And that is what is being called for in this day and age. You know, this is a time that is ripe for change. This is a time of people awakening. And yes, there's what they call the backlash of what's going on with people who are resisting and holding on to the way things were in the past. We know that there's something new being birthed. We know that it has to do with consciousness. And this expanded consciousness, I'm trusting that story of Anita Moorjani and other people who've had near-death experiences can help to shed a light on who we are and what we're capable of. So let's close our eyes, turn within, and ask yourself, who have I come here to be? In this, what has this particular message stimulated in me? Listen deeply, reverently. What is the message for me today? And then turn to one or two other people and share. Okay? All right. Notice how that helps to verbalize it with somebody else, what it was that you picked up to help it kind of integrate a little bit, the message, whatever was there for you. I know it's a very powerful process. It's something I learned from the field of neuroscience and the way in which we integrate new information. So I'm trusting that that's all working for all of you. And so now I would like to introduce to you our beloved Deb, who I know has this magical way of just bringing whatever the message is into the emotional body, right? To help us integrate it even further. So thank you, Deb.
Thank you so much. This is a song I wrote called